Hey, what's up everyone? Ben at ProFixerr, and in today's video here on the channel, we're going to be going over a pretty cool repair today. This particular one is actually a Nintendo Game Boy Advanced game cartridge. So the batteries themselves can kind of go bad, and so you replace them with a cool little replacement one. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a very, very simple repair. It's going to be incredibly quick, and I'm going to show you how to ensure that you are getting the proper side of the battery connected to the proper point on the board, depending on if it's positive or negative, which is incredibly important. I'm going to show you how to identify that and how to orient the battery correctly so you don't damage your Game Boy cartridge. Everything on my workbench is linked up in the description below, including this awesome microscope, the soldering station, hot air. Everything is linked up, and you'll probably see it's from Injured Gadgets. They are our most favorite supplier, and we highly recommend them. And I actually helped them create these kits and put them onto their website so that you're able to purchase a ready-made assembled kit that's good to go to start micro soldering. Without further ado, let's get started on this Game Boy Advanced game cartridge battery repair. Like I mentioned before, we are here on the channel today to swap out the game cartridge battery. It's pretty easy. You will need a soldering station. You can use a pretty basic one. There's a couple things that you'll need as well. You'll need some flux, some solder, and like I mentioned, a very, very simple soldering station. You don't actually need a microscope, but I'll be using that today to kind of show you a little more detail underneath the scope itself. To kind of give you an idea what we're working with here, this is the game cartridge itself. This particular one had this battery that was inside of this little clamp here, but the battery has since died, rendering the cartridge useless. It won't work. So we're going to replace it with this awesome one that the customer provided for us. This one here, it's marked as positive, and then also, of course, negative on the bottom side. I'm going to show you how to match those up. So what we're going to do is let's go underneath the scope and do that now. So I have two different camera angles here for you, so you can see the one from the front and also the one from directly down. Inspecting the cartridge itself, if we orient it with the game reader contacts pointing towards you so that we're all oriented the same exact way, if we look at this, we can see that the positive is over here on the left side, and that's actually indicated with that little circle with the little positive mark in there, right? So that is the positive side. If we look over on the other, we will see that it is indicated with a circle and then a minus sign. So pretty cool. The orientation of the battery is incredibly important in order for this to actually operate and not cause any kind of damage from reverse polarity. On the top of the battery itself, you can see that it's actually indicated as a positive right there, right? Positive. And this is tack welded on with this little tab that goes down there. So if we're wanting to match this with the shape of the little clamps, we'd actually put it on backwards, because if we look, the one that goes on top is actually a minus. So we want to remove these two little arms, and then we're going to solder this one here, and we are not going to orient it the same exact way as we would think, because we're going to match the positive, or the positive to the positive, the negative to the negative, but don't pay any attention to the way that these are folded over, because it's opposite for our battery here. So if you're tracking, comment below and let me know if that makes complete sense, because that's really, really important to do. So next thing that we want to do is you can go ahead and get a little bit of flux. Even some of this like Radio Shack older rosin style flux would work perfect. This stuff actually super hard to get open because I haven't opened in a while. But this stuff is just pretty dark. As you can see there, it would work totally fine. Or if you had some of this no clean flux, this stuff is pretty awesome. Amtech 559, pick it up from Injured Gadgets as well. However, if you're a hobbyist, this will probably be much too expensive, so you can just pick up just whatever cheap flux you can find. And actually, you can use tree sap from a tree actually in a pinch. We're not going to be showing that here today, maybe on another video, but let's get going with this one here. So for ease of use, I'm just going to use this stuff here. So we're going to put a little dot there, a little dot there. If you're using the other flux, you can just use like a little toothpick or something like that to kind of scrape some off, and you're good to go. So we want to go ahead and grab this here with some tweezers, because we just want to hold it as we lift it off, and then we're going to use a pretty wide tip. If you have a smaller one, it works fine too, but check out the flux. The flux is actually acidic whenever you heat it up, which is really great, because what it'll do, it'll actually clean the surface, and also it shields the solder from any surrounding oxygen. Oxygen, if it is in the air itself around your solder, it will actually react and cause oxidation. It actually reacts with all the molecules inside of the solder, and that will cause a really dirty joint, and also it doesn't allow the solder to flow because you have oxygen mixing in and it's getting all muddy looking. And that can hinder the ability for the battery power to flow through the device itself. Probably not too much on this one because it's very low power, but it just looks really ugly and it's not very proper. So we're just going to hold this down. We'll probably see a bit of bubbling, and then we're just going to gently just, lift that off there, just like that. So there we go. Pretty cool. It left a lot of solder on there, which is great. The thing is, you want to make sure that your iron is very, very clean, and that it will actually accept solder. So if you have extra solder sitting around, make sure that it looks like this. If you're trying to make sure that your tip is prepared enough, if you try to add some solder to it, it should just add on just like that. If it doesn't add on very smoothly, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to clean it in some kind of brass coil. You could potentially need to buy a whole new one, or you could actually clean it with some of this chemical paste. This is actually really awesome, and only use that whenever absolutely necessary, because it is pretty corrosive and will actually just burn, whatever nasty top layer of oxidation you have on there, and it'll prepare it fresh, but it's not the best thing in the world because it's pretty harsh, but you can use that occasionally. That's available in Ninja Gadgets as well. It's linked up in the description too. At this point, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So if you're enjoying what we're watching here with the level of detail, let me know. Comment below what you like, also what you don't like, because we can make sure that we provide videos that all of you enjoy. So this next one, we're going to take it off the same way, ensuring that we don't cause any kind of bridges right here. We don't want to accidentally touch here with any kind of soldering iron. We also don't want the back end of our iron to touch this little guy. So if we're holding here, look at that, my iron overlaps it. So if I get too low, it'll actually cause the little component to come off. So let's go ahead and hold on here again. Look at that. It just melts right away, and then I can go ahead and pull it right off, just like that. So very easy to do there. So next thing, we're just going to set those off to the side, just like that. We're going to clean our iron, put it back up, and then we're going to get a little Q-tip. And with this Q-tip itself, we're going to use some isopropyl alcohol. Generally, the stuff that you have at home is going to be like 70% rubbing alcohol. That does work decent, but it's not the best for repairs like these. You want to use 100%. Make sure you're wearing gloves with it as well, because it can dry out your hands pretty heavily. So let's go ahead and use a little Q-tip. Clean up all of our little solder joints here. If it's not coming off, that's fine. Just leave it and then go back to the other one, because just a little longer exposure on there will actually allow it to come off. Let's go and clean this one all up, and depending on how bad it is, it may not come off that easily. You may have to get your little tweezers and scrape some of this off. No big deal. Cool. So there we go. Looking pretty good. And you don't have to get this absolutely perfect. You just want it to be pretty much, close enough. I know there's a lot of game cartridges out there that have been swapped out pretty messily. Nothing wrong with that. So long as they work, that's really your main goal. So don't beat yourself up over it if it doesn't look absolutely perfect. Really, all that you're wanting to do is just make sure that you're connected. That's really the main thing here. So I'm going to clean this up because we did loosen up some of that there. Cool. Looking great. I'm going to set the little Q-tip off to the side and also get my little canned air. We're going to blow this off on the bench to kind of dry it. And there we go. So looking at this little guy, it looks like everything is, as it should be. Everything looks perfect and great. So soldering this new one on is actually really easy. But like I mentioned before, we want to make sure we orient this the right way. So taking a note of, these little positive and also the negative marks on here, we want to orient the battery exactly the same way. So taking a look at this on the top of the battery in the smaller area, like on the flat part, the bottom's domed. But on the top flat part, those are always the positive side. So that's going to go over to here, right? And then the bottom side extends over that way. Funny thing is, though, we do have a little bit of a problem. So check this out. It sits up here, great. But look at this side. I actually bent it before the video. But this side should be okay. But look at this. We bent it because we want it to sit down in there. So One thing you can do is grab it with a little bit of tweezers, and we can bend it down a little bit, and then bend like a little bit of a leg into it, just like that. That should work fine. And then the other one, you don't really have to bend it too much, just kind of point it downwards a little bit, so that way it goes down into the solder itself. So now if we lay this on here, it's really going to be sitting up, you know, decently high, and that's exactly where we want it to be. So there we go. Then once we solder this one in, it will totally be in the right spot. So there we go. So next thing's next. Go ahead and get your flux. We're going to go and add just a tiny bit on here. You know, just like that there. Also, you can go and add it to the other side, no problem at all at this point. Flux is pretty nasty stuff, so if you're doing this at home and you're at your kitchen table or wherever you are, make sure that you are cleaning up or you have a little mat down. You don't want to be eating this stuff afterwards on your dinner table, so definitely be aware of that. One thing that you can do as well to kind of help the solder to flow a little bit, it's not really necessary all the way, but you can put a little bit of flux there, especially if you're at home using an iron that's maybe not that capable of getting too hot, then you know you want to do it this way. This can just really help those little legs to be prepared enough to take solder. So this next part we want to do is just go ahead and line it up. So remember the positive to the positive. We are kind of you know, crooked now because we're upside down because I just flipped it around. But check this out. I'm going to lay this on top. If we're oriented right there, we want this to actually move over a little bit. So we're going to hold it right there. So you can see, we can actually see both of those. Hold it just like that. So now let's move this over here while I'm holding it in place. And then we're going to go to iron and go ahead and just touch the solder, you know, right here. So we can actually lay it in place like that, and then wipe our iron over top of it. And that looks absolutely perfect. Check that out. It looks like a really good joint. We're not going to mess with it at all because, you know, touching it up can sometimes disturb it, and it looks good enough from the get-go. So that's all that we're going to do. This next one as well, go ahead and heat it up. So there we go. And we're going to heat this one from the top and see if we can't get this melted here. Even my iron is really high power. There we go. Perfect. Look at that. Got that one on there. So now just double checking our work. You always want to double check your work afterwards. We have our positive, which is this little arm that touches the top for positive is going into positive. And then our negative, of course, it was underneath, is going down to the negative. So great. This one's all the way good. So go ahead and get a little bit of our alcohol. And go ahead and clean this one up. Once again, you may have to, depending, get your tweezers and just kind of clean this one a little bit. You can use a toothbrush on here too. Toothbrushes are okay to use. So perfect. This one looks really clean though. So let me get my little toothbrush here. So just cleaning this up real good. So how about that? Now we're going to blow this one off and then do our one last final inspection on it, and we should be good. So taking a look at this one here, just to review it, positive with the positive, negative with the negative, everything looks tidy and in place. So I definitely say that this one is all wrapped up and ready to go. So super excited to be able to resurrect this Game Boy Advance. This is actually a Pokemon cartridge, so pretty cool. Excited to be able to get this back to the customer at 2002. So how exciting is that? So really old cartridge. At this point, that's like 20 years old. That's wild to think about that. Year 2002 is 20 years old at the point of when this video was made. Pretty crazy. But yeah, so hopefully you followed along. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also like it. So go and hit the like button, and also don't forget to turn on the notifications so you get all the new notifications for when we release new videos. I appreciate everyone that is still watching to this point. Y'all are absolutely amazing. Let me know how I did, comment below, and hopefully see you on future videos. If y'all have any requests, put them in the comment section below. But once again, my name is Ben Rosso with ProFixerr, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.